So the first thing I have to say in regards to your status quo, there are several disadvantages in your status quo of how things are currently being operated in your source of the LA Police Department, and then also an additional source that I have found regarding the Washington Police Department. Both police departments seek to look for third-party controllers and vendors to either produce, monitor, and also fix all the issues that the cameras have. The problem with this is that they're monitored by non-police personnel. So if a person is not trained within the same rights of a police officer, they're not going to know exactly what to look for. Things could pass by them without them actually knowing it. Also, in the same token, the same flip of a coin, that lack of control. So when you have a third party, they're not held to the same morals and ethics of control. So they will be easier to corrupt and actually get in there and actually manipulate or any of the information that is possible due to that lack of control because there is no police personnel. They're not held to certain standards, not held to a pledge or a badge or anything like that. There's no win, no lose for them either way it goes. Well, there is a win for them. There could be a win. But there is no lose for them if they aren't controlling that equipment correctly. In my source with the Washington Police Department, in choosing their vendor, they had a low number of vendors to choose from. So it's not a popular, people aren't producing body cameras at the rate that we should have them. So the technology isn't necessarily all there. So you're going to have places that don't have any vendors that can't supply any cameras to those people, and it will be just more expensive to get them to that location. Also, with that same price, the price could be controlled by these vendors because there's not that many vendors producing body cameras. So therefore, they could control the price, ultimately taking advantage of the citizens and tax-paying money by taking the money and raising the prices ridiculously high because there's not that many vendors out there. In addition, in both cases, the police officer has to notify the citizen that they are being recorded. So that in the event that the police officer does not actually mention that they're being recorded, that information will not be able to be used. In addition to that, what's not included in the budgets for both of the departments for Washington and Los Angeles is the public record request. So for anyone who wants to make a complaint or anything like that and wants to get that footage, it's going to be expensive. It's going to be more lengthy. Those complaints, those requests are going to go up. So that department is going to need to hire more people to be able to do that. They're going to have to stay longer to watch all that stuff. And then they're just going to have more manpower to accommodate those requests that are going to come in. And so that is an unwanted expense that's not in the budget for getting these cameras. In addition, your source for the LA Police Department, only 60 days is when the footage will be held and then it will be deleted. So there's a problem with that because if a person is unavailable to make a request to get that done within 60 days, they could be incapacitated for any reason, ailment, incarceration, family matters, whatever the situation is, they still will not be able to do it within that time frame. Also, if the time of the request to process it, since it is going to be a more lengthy process, if someone is not able to get their process completed in time of that 60 days, their footage is gone. Moving on to more issues in your solvency with your source B, with the technology issues, there will be no point in implementing body camera usage if we won't be able to use it. If police officers are using it incorrectly, turning it on wrong, not speaking loud enough for it, things like that, things are going to be hidden and still not going to address the problem of monitoring behavior, which police cameras are supposed to be doing. And in order to negate this, training can be had to do this, but this training is not also included in the funding. So this is also an unwanted expense that's going to come from this body camera that's not being associated with it. So when the citizen is also notified, it impacts their behavior and the police's behavior. So it does nothing to actually solve prejudged stops, hidden motives, all those stuffs for what is actually going on. It does not actually capture behind the scenes of what's going on with that police officer and with that person that's actually being stopped by that police officer. So yes, it's controlling behavior, but it's controlling behavior in a way that could offset what's really going on. In addition to those two problems, those two disadvantages of your status quo, there are issues in your plan. As stated in your plan, you said each department has to come up with the funding for their cameras, or will be giving funding for that cameras. If a community does not need cameras, for say example, an all-white community or all affluent community who doesn't have a crime problem, there will be no need to actually record them. And that also goes for secluded areas where the police is not actually really working that hard. And then it would be too hard. So also then the money that goes to the vendors, there's also money that you're saying is coming from this, but the budgets that you're including is not the budget, is not the money that will actually be an expense to you to implementing this procedures. It needs to be adjusted, and the vendors actually have to be adjusted. So you're saying the police department is monitoring their actual cameras when in reality, a third party is most likely going to monitor those cameras. So if it is currently not being done that way now, there will be no need for it to be done, or it should be done that way, but it's currently not being done that way, and that's when you have that non-police personnel taking police matters way further than they should. So those are your problems with your plan. There are also problems with your solvency. In your treatment for the Rialto police, the police have the opportunity to turn off and on cameras at their own discretion, ultimately swaying the results of the behavior are coming out. So as stated in your source, when the camera did go off, more violent behavior happened. So they had the discretion to turn it off. They knew that they were going to be doing something wrong, and they turned it off. So as this saying being said, with the tech issues, as stated in your status quo, those tech issues, a police officer could actually use those tech issues to their advantage. So they could actually cover up the camera on accident, muffle up the camera, make a sound so that something's not being heard, and use those to their advantage so they still can do it at their own discretion. If a police officer fails to give notice, the camera will be pointless. There will be no need for it. And then the failing cameras, they're backfiring on you guys. And then they're not necessarily 100% accurate. There's no way to control that information that's being watched by these non-police professionals. So those are the problems with your case. Feel free to ask any questions.